Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee and No Code with me, Gary Hoberman. It's amazing as we've done each episode and it keeps getting better and better. This one I was super excited for because here we have Don is someone as a technology leader, and we keep highlighting fearless technology leaders that drive through change against all odds, is what I would say, Don. You are definitely that role model. And it's a pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Gary. It's a pleasure being here as well.
So Don, just first off, tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, where you are. I know we know HHS is one of the largest organizations in the government and what you guys do. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what it means. It'd be great to just educate the audience a little bit about your background and HHS in general.
Yeah, I serve as a deputy CIO responsible for all IT operations systems inside of the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health. And that office exists in the Office of the Secretary of HHS. So sometimes people confuse my organization or my team with the HHS Office of the CIO. We're not that. We're a subcomponent. We're a small organization, and within our organization exists the Public Health Service. And one of my chief customers is the Surgeon General of the United States, and of course, the Assistant Secretary for Health, Admiral Levine. I'm a recent employee of the organization. My boss and I um, have been working together from our days at HHS in Secret Service. We worked together in private sector, and in December 2019, we started talking about this new organization he'd be setting up, and his name is Wayne Hall. So, we've been putting together this IT organization to meet the needs of these 6,500 highly skilled physicians, clinicians, and folks doing wonderful work to support the pandemic, unaccompanied minors, the Afghanistan pullout, those kinds of things. So these are people with really, really significant missions and are in dire need of good tech. I think you and I talked about sometime. We don't call it IT anymore. We're starting to talk about it as tech, right? And it's the enabler for the various and sundry missions that these good folks have. So yeah, pleasure to be a part of this team.
Yeah, Don, and I've got to meet you and Wayne, of course, during this journey. It's just been amazing to see leaders like this. And your background, you weren't always on the federal side, right? So you were also on the software side, and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. I hate telling this background, Gary, because that my age is going to immediately show, right?
hey,
But
I
I
talk
started.
Y2K as if it was just the middle of my career. Like, don't worry.
I started on Army aviation, believe it or not, as a youngster. I grew up in New York and product of the New York City public school system. Went into the Army right after high school. Did Army aviation. Then I went into biomedical engineering, also through the military. Spent 10 years in that. Had my own company for a while. Did business overseas. The latter part of that company started to get introduced to security technologies, specifically surveillance systems and those kinds of things. And after 9/11, I was recruited to join TSA, new organization. I was in the first few hundred people back in May of 2002.
Wow.
And within a year, we were over 55,000 people. I mean, one of the largest mobilizations, I believe, since the War Department converted to DOD. And those were heady times in the government. And we did things in that first 12 to 18 months that nobody has done in government since. And we put a lot of systems together. And so my background in technology, I've had the opportunity to see the evolution of technology and the incestuous nature of technology, right? And so, I was taught everything from tube theory, imagine that, transistor theory, Microsoft, microprocessing theory. I mean, all the way through, because in biomedical engineering, It leverages just about every piece of technology that's out there in the medical technology field. So I'll give you an example. Mass spectrometry, right? Something that is used when you have a common blood test. Well, that got converted to testing for explosives, which is in our system now. Medical grade CAT scans were converted to security technology. When you put your bags on the conveyor belt, when you go to the airport, that's a medical grade CAT scan that's been converted to look for explosives, right? So over the years, over my career, I've seen the evolution of technology. And before I left TSA, I served as the general manager for IT strategy and innovation, essentially the CTO, where I had responsibility for governance and for emerging technologies, customer partner relations management. So I had the opportunity of being on the program side as well as on the mission support side. I also served as a commission inspector, where I did security surveillance and assessments at 450 airports across the country. So I've had the opportunity of both being in private sector and government, on the program side, as well as serving as the CIO or CTO. So it's been interesting. So my perspective is one that tech has got to address the needs of the business or the mission. And if it doesn't do that, then we've got a serious challenge and a problem. And nowadays, when I talk to my customers, when I talk to Admiral Levine, what they care about is, how can I do my job better? How can I leverage technology to do my job better, to get those business and operational insights, right? And nobody, whether in the private sector or on the government side, on the mission side, right? No one cares about our governance. No one cares about our processes. They want transparency, accountability, and tech that has high utility and is secure. That's the end state. That's nirvana. So anything that gets us there in a cost-effective way, I think, is the opportunity space of the future, and that's where we need to start to look.
Yeah, it's amazing because I had conversations yesterday with my team and a hedge fund where, technology is core to the business. And it was amazing because the conversation was, you proved my point just now. So I always believe the 10Xer engineer, the concept of the engineer who is the best quality engineer, the ones everyone strives to hire, the ones that are so rare, they're normally the ones that look the most for reuse, because you don't want to write code where you don't have to. And that's really what it's about is, and I've seen this throughout my career, was why would you want to write a math library if MATLAB exists? Why would you want to actually create a new API if you could get it in someone else? And so it's almost like, why would you want to build hardware if you could use cloud? And still to this day, that's a conversation which takes place. People want to code in many cases because they feel that's what they could do, instead of the best engineers I've always found just look to see, has a problem already been solved before me? And if it has, reuse it. So I didn't know those examples you gave where the medical field actually overlaid into the bomb detection. It's amazing to hear that. And I could see in the comments, there's a lot of feedback on that as well, which is incredible. And Don, that gets to the point, which is your goal is to deliver value to your partners through technology. Like that's what I grew up thinking, what could technology do for all of us? What would society be like? And I still feel like even in these days, we're kind of in that middle school awkward acne phase where things are not working as great as they could be, but getting better. What is your vision? What is your vision for where you are now? What do you see?
Yeah, for many years now, I've been involved with, either supporting or directly deciding on tech select, right? What am I going to buy? And it started out in my biomedical or medical technology background, where we were purchasing, major, a CAT scan, $1.6 million, or an MRI suite or anything else. And that translated over into my business. What technology was I going to associate it with? And now in the federal space, as a deputy CIO, my team and I We evaluate technology on what I, lovingly call the three-legged stool, right? Which is, what is the capability set? What is the total cost of ownership? Which is development, O&M. What does it cost me to own this piece of technology? And the third leg of the stool is, what are the risks and security implications for that, right? And it's a system of trade-offs. And ultimately, my objective is to get a highly utilitarian product before my customers that solves their business problems. Not what is convenient to me, but in that capability set, what is actually doing that? So I don't want to reinvent the wheel where I don't have to. And my team and I are successful. One of the promise of some of the platforms that have been out on the market for a number of years, whether it be low code, no code, what have you, is the ability, to your point, why reinvent the wheel, right? To your point, what can I leverage that exists today? And one of the things that we're very proud of is that our partners at HHS, and we had some partners in the Office of Inspector General, and we were using a low-code platform, we were able to leverage that to turn on capabilities in a matter of weeks rather than months. In fact, my team won an award for that last June, for being able to leverage that. And we want to continue that along those paths. We want to build things once, use it multiple times, because that's going to reduce my TCO, my total cost of ownership, right? And it also serves a more important lesson is, how do I get my customers acclimated to the capability in the shortest time frame possible, right? And so systems that are intuitive, when people get comfortable with a platform, we saw that recently when we were switching, webcasting software, where people were more acclimated and more comfortable with one system versus another. You have to factor that in to what you're going to deliver. And if your platforms keep changing every day, you're going to be challenged by that, right? So it's about getting to product in the shortest time frame possible, what I call getting to market quicker. And I know, as a federal guy, getting to market is typically not a term that we use in the federal space, but getting to market for me means that I can get applications up and running quickly, and my customers can go do their jobs, using a tool that's going to give them what they need.
It's amazing, Don, what you described there in practice. And that's the best way to think of things, not theoretical, but practice, is codeless architecture. It's this concept of, you snap in the best of breed technologies into a no-code framework, which basically allows you to glue together those best components into a cohesive solution. It's not the way things have been working before. It's broken. There's niche software doing each individual piece. Everything looks disparate. Everything looks unique and different. Your customers are going into 50 different screens and, of course, 5 logins instead of one cohesive look and feel. And that's kind of what I think, when we think about what's exciting in the future, it is codeless. It is that aspect of snapping in and bringing in those best of breed components that do those features as they're designed to. And it's what, that's what excites us. It's exactly the same mission, which is, we celebrate success with the customers. That's what and it's all about what you said, time to market. And I love hearing it on the federal side, because we work with the biggest banks and financial institutions across the globe and public sector. But the biggest difference could be in federal for all of us in the usage of this as consumers, as ultimate beneficiaries of this. And
Well,
you're leading the way. You're definitely leading the way with codeless architecture there, what you're doing.
but it's not only me. I think the Office of the Federal CIO, in moving forward with TBM, Technology Business Management, one of the objectives is to start operating in the federal space more like private sector, right? And we start thinking about these things in this term. And Gary, as you mentioned, the integration points with multiple systems and so on. When I have to do a major, operating system upgrade, for example, that's going to impact all my applications, there's always room for something to go bump in the night, right? There's a lot of risk. We have to, start notifying our customers, hey, your 20 applications might be impacted by this major upgrade, right? That adds to my TCO, and that adds complexity and risk that I'd like to offshore and move away from as we move forward, right? I think the advent, I attended a talk some weeks back with um, some other federal CIOs, and we're talking about the citizen developer, right? And moving development to the edge, right? To the subject matter experts that know their business and have a high level of investment in getting this piece of tech as a tool, a piece of utility, right? The the more we can bring the developer and that person that is the primary user of that system and know that once we build that system, it's bulletproof. I don't have to roll back software at Monday morning at 7 a.m. and impact my customers, right? I mean, I think as a former CIO, all too well, what happens when you
Oh
have to
God,
do those major.
My Friday morning from 7 to 9 each week was talking
Yeah,
about outages for the previous week and the changes coming in the next weekend, and the rollback plans for every single one of those changes across 8,000 apps with $1 billion of spend happening. And what you realize very quickly is the rollback plans on paper actually don't exist in reality. They're theoretical. And when you get into practice, you need to roll it back, which always happened. It didn't actually work. And everyone was like,
yeah,
let's just keep going ahead. And you spend the entire weekend. So I've lived and breathed that in the code world today and the low code
right.
world. Like that's absolutely what we've been living and breathing as a same as you. And that's
Yeah. Well,
and
I mean, there's an old military saying, no great plan survives first contact with the enemy, right? So, so many things can go wrong. So, Gary, if we can evolve to a point, and we've been, Wayne Hall was clear when we started out that we were going to go to, uncoupled systems, right? Because we didn't want to be married to a platform or to a technology that no matter where they went, good or bad, we were on a set of train tracks that we couldn't get off, right? So even we've created an IT ecosystem that allows for multiple platforms and technology with a centralized data hub with the intent that we're going to have the ability to make or live out the three-legged stool, constantly evaluating our ability and our capabilities along with our costs. And because these things are all dynamic, no technology and the evolution of technology, again, if I just look back over my career, is speeding up even more so. I mean, Moore's Law comes to mind at that point. I think we're exceeding that right now. I think the opportunity space with codeless architecture is one of those technology disruptors that's going to impact a lot of folks, and it's going to impact industry because there's a lot of things that, if successful, CIOs are no longer going to have to worry or bite their nails when they're doing some of the transitions and the evolutions that we ultimately have to do from time to time. So
that's
it's
amazing. That's yeah. And you mentioned upgradability. I mean, it has to be, you can't, I like to think how much time was spent on end of life software. Like every time a software would come end of life, it would be a project that would be multi-million dollar, all the resources devoted against it. It's high priority. And you're not getting anything from it other than resolving something that's legacy. It's not any new features. It's just, and so we're ending that. I mean, that's our goal is end to end of life. But you also, I know, Don, the other risks, I'm assuming security is a core risk to everything being done within federal government, compliance, all of those are things I'm sure top of mind with any solution that you're looking at today as well.
Oh, absolutely. My years doing security taught me an important lesson. For every convenience, for every capability, there's an inherent vulnerability, right? And the more notoriety you have, the more popular your system is. You become a target for the entrepreneur hacker who is looking for, to test whatever network systems or platforms that there is. Can they get there? You've got state-sponsored actors, and then you have criminals, right? And these people are looking to exploit ransomware and so on and so forth. So one of the things that, and it goes back to that three-legged stool. What's my risk and what's my security implications of any platform, any tech that we use in our ecosystem? How do we ensure that we're not going to have a Washington Post moment? And I don't know that any CIO in the federal space does not worry about that in the federal government, which introduces again the reason why people generally don't want to, in the federal space, leap at innovative technologies or technologies that's not tried, true, and tested, right? And so it's a trade-off, Gary. You got to weigh the promise of what you're getting versus these risk models that in some cases are unknown. So the best you can do is, I think, building those bulkheads so that if you start to take on water and on one part of the ship, you don't take the whole ship down. So I don't know what's your thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, I remember meeting a founder and CEO at one point when I was first creating Unqork, and I remember him saying his 70th employee was a CISO. And, we opened payroll November 2017, and our CISO was one of the first employees ever in payroll before engineers, because you can't these days build a single system without having security first in mind. It is a thing that keeps me up. It's a thing. So what's interesting though, is it all in codeless architecture goes hand in hand for the first time. So, I remember highly critical PII privacy data apps with highly confidential data. I built 256-bit salt keys before. I've done some pretty crazy stuff. But the reality was you'd only test those apps twice a year at most, maybe once a year with vulnerability assessments and ethical. And that's what you need to do because everything around you changing, the bad actors are changing. And so what's amazing is once you say it's codeless, everything's upgradable, the systems are transparent, it's portable. What's really interesting is how all the customers running on the same core base means the second one customer does a vulnerability assessment and test, they're testing everyone else's applications without ever knowing it. And so my vision is we have 100 customers today. So every 3 days, we should have a vulnerability assessment being done by some customer, or maybe it's every 2 days or 1 day. I can't wait till there's multiple being done every single day because our customers are driving it and doing it, because the entire community benefits. It's exactly opposite of the world you and I live in, which is, you think about every single app being built in every department and every division, and every technologist super proud and accomplished of what they've done. And it's amazing what they've done, but they've done it in isolation. So security becomes a storytelling exercise, sharing across CIOs and CISOs and saying, hey, FBI, tell us what's happening across all these markets, instead of everyone's running on the same code base, which is, it eliminates everything at that point. There's no more you don't have to share stories because you're all benefiting. And that's the vision of codeless. That's what I'm like. That's what's super exciting for me is,
So what you're saying is you're aggregating threat vectors is really what you're doing, right? I mean, you're pooling the various and the sundry threat vectors and the subsequent testing to test the nature of your platform to be impervious to these novel ways of trying to get into the system, which could be beneficial versus everyone's got a siloed platform their target rich environment. Healthcare is a target rich environment right now, right?
Absolutely.
For state actors, right? So yeah, I understand that as a potential value proposition to dealing with the cyber aspects of it. I mean, but again, how would you create a bulkhead that doesn't create a scenario where you're going to take down your entire customer base because your platform was hacked? How would you see that?
I mean, that's why it's exactly what we thought when we created Unqork, which is why we're one of the unique single tenant solutions with encryption key owned by the customer individually that we can't get access to. It means that there is no single Unqork. And it also means we're like You shouldn't know we exist. In a codeless architecture picture, we play a role, but it doesn't actually mean we have an experience, a UI. No one should know that they're ever using one of our apps. They should understand it, which reduces the threat. It reduces, that's very different from every other software company out there that wants to have their brand in front of you, the image in front of you. To us, it's about solving a problem, like helping the customer, let them solve a problem. I love your citizen developer concept of enabling. I got a demo today from our team of one of our customer solutions, and I've been hesitant as to the role of citizen developer versus engineer. And I believe engineers create the best apps, even within codeless architecture, that you have to have a system design, but the business should play a role in that app creation where they couldn't before. Today I got a demo. It was amazing. It was the IT group of the client is maintaining business rules in an internal system that existed. And it's all the rules, all the questions, all the highly complex medical rules. And we're importing that into Unqork. And now the business is owning the UI and the experience in Unqork. And it's such a beautiful relationship of tech and business for the first time, with highly compliance and rollback built and everything. And it's just, that's what I think that's what the future
Well,
is.
that's the future. That is in the same talk we did some weeks back with some of our sister agencies. I got to see what some of the SME developers were actually, how they were exploiting a system to really gain business insights in terms of how they do citizen engagement with the public from a healthcare standpoint, right? And I think where we're getting to, having run applications development and engagement and those kinds of things before, what I will tell you is that it reduces your adoption of the application significantly when you involve what we call the program more directly. Okay. Now, the old adage, Gary, is that, yeah, give me your requirements, and the developers go back into a back room, develop something, and go ta-da, and they show it to their clients, right? In my experience, even if you got it right, even if you got 99% of the requirements right and delivered it, inherently it's going to change the organization once you deliver it. It's just the nature of things. But if you move into a construct where the development activities and the people that are actually going to be using the systems are more tightly integrated, and they can evolve with the organization over time, then we toggle into a new genre, a new thing that's been talked about. In fact, I remember years ago, I think it was back in 2010, 2011, we were at a DHS conference with one of our large system integrators, and this idea was promoted. And I literally, probably there was, maybe 80, 90 people in the room, said, oh, well, you're going to put some CIOs out of business because now we're not going to need these multiple teams and so on and so forth. And everybody kind of agreed, yes. But at that point in time, we had not gotten there in terms of the technology. Now where we are is, can you re-architect existing applications that's mobile enabled, that you're gathering key operational business information from the edge, and then what it starts to do, so it becomes a utility for the end users, right? But layers of management that go all the way up to the senior management are also looking for the insights from those systems, because that's driving decision making, what we used to call decision support tools when we call it in the military, right? Now they have that. That needs to happen in the government. And what you're going to see is the time frame from things happening in the environment that you're working in and the time that the government reacts to that, that's now going to be brought down and drawn down to something much more effective. And I think that's the real opportunity space. And everybody now is going to have to, whether it's your governance cycles, everything else, they're going to have to retool to this more rapid delivery of IT capabilities. So,
Don, I think, yeah, what I'm hearing and seeing is, with you and Wayne and the leadership at HSS and what you guys drive, the fearless leadership here, like, you guys are going to leapfrog the banks in their technology. I mean, there are banks, with with so much technology resource behind it, and you're taking one of the boldest steps in leapfrogging where everyone is going. And it is the biggest service for all of us. It's everything we could do. It's by the way, the work that we do in the public sector side is what I always tell my kids about. It's we delivered 100 million food orders to senior citizens through Unqork. Like, that was COVID. That's the work that our customers did. That's so rewarding, and it's amazing. And again, I think you and I could probably go for like hours, is what I'm going to assume here. And I think we could easily do this. And I'm going to have to leave some for our next session. We'll do this, again soon. And I could see the feedback here. By the way, everyone says love the three-legged stool, uncoupled systems, embrace like I love they love the analogies and the plans. Don, you've got a big fan base here, which is awesome to see. And it's what I expected. And with that, look, I just again want to thank you for the fearless leadership and drive, and thank you for everything you do for the country. And it's amazing, Don, and for being
My
here.
pleasure, Gary. Good talking to you again.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks until next episode, everyone. Thank you again. Have a great weekend, great day, and great vacation. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.